Rory Waterman is an English poet who was born in Belfast. Because I guess, much like Spike Milligan, he wanted to be near his mother. That's what Spike Milligan responded when English journalists asked him how did he come to be born in India. More especially, I guess, because his father, the poet Andrew Waterman, lived and taught in Northern Ireland for many years. There are very few successful Sion poets' parent poet Rory was one of those. Still a young man, born in the 1980s, although of course we are already featuring at this year's festival a number of poets born in the 90s. He's published 2 collections of Carcanet, a press which has become increasingly important to Cork literary heritage, with Greg Delanty, Martina Evans, James Harper and Thomas McCarthy all now on that list. In Rory's first collection, Tonight the Summer's Over, he turns an unblurred eye on his childhood, contrasting his Ulster origin with his English sense of belonging, caught between 2 countries, 2 cultures, and 2 parents. But in antithesis to Philip Larkin, his poems are well travelled. He's edited a selection of W.H. Davies called The True Traveller. And in his own second collection, Sarajevo Roses, we find ourselves on sleeper trains, in cars, and on foot. Waterman takes us into Mediterranean Europe, to Palma, Belver Castle, to Benedetto, the Italian ghost town Krakow, and to St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. Surrounded by the war-shaped memorial landscapes of Europe, the poet is faced by those smaller wars and memorials one carries within, marks left by lovers, friends, relations, and past selves. Please welcome Rory Waterman.
If you know my dad, please don't hold it against me. So I grew up in Lincolnshire, and I now live in Nottingham, which is I live about 30 miles from where I grew. Can you hear me? Is this okay? Okay. I grew up about, I don't have to lean over. I live about 30 miles from where I grew up, kind of like an unwilling boomerang that didn't quite get all the way back or something. But I live in Nottingham now. And quite near there are lots of, just north of there, lots of former mining towns, normally quite brutalised places. There are 3 poems about that in this book, and I'm going to read 2 of them. And the first one's called Driving Through the Pit Town, and it's dated 2013. Driving through the pit town. There's not much round here now, you say. Just huddled brick or pebble-dashed terraces and tiny new builds where the pitheads were. Bare hills fly up beyond the town you left, with clasps of scree, caps of sodden green pitched above the neat slate pitches. But your eyes stay on the road. The side streets jut left and right, so many of them, like ribs. You jab a finger. We lived up top of that one. Then, surprise, a pale sun picks at a slit in the paper sky. Yellow slaps down momently and slides along the valley, and half a pit wheel trenched in the roundabout shimmers, red as flesh. We won't stop here. And most of the shops, Kebab Land, USA Nails, Milan Fashions, are shut or boarded anyway. The 4 lads pincering fags outside the co-op, gobbing and shoving, repulse for what they are. It's no use knowing better, more, you say. And in blue spray paint, the back of the village sign cries ding dong, like we're waiting at a door. That might not make much sense if you don't know that Thatcher died in 2013, but unless you were living in the Cork-lined room, you probably do. June morning, Erewash Canal. The Erewash Canal runs down towards Nottingham and has some of these towns and villages on it. The colliery's a country park. His old man shunted coal. This young dad teaches his lad to fish at a bug-flecked winding hole, while opposite, a brace of fish repeats between the reeds. Like this, he bellows, hands on shoulders, pulling the kid around, who grimaces and squares his shoulders, wanting the world to know he knows. May petals file across in fuddles of sun-dried snow. Okay, I haven't read this poem at a reading yet, I don't think. Patrick mentioned my dad. My dad's currently on his fifth wife, and I was the product of number 4. Unfortunately, they got married after I was born, so I am a bastard. But it's a cross I've had to bear in my life. But my wife and I separated about a year ago on very good terms, which is a way of saying it wasn't as difficult as it might have been. And some of the reasons behind this poem are perhaps why. I'm not one for big overarching morals, but if there is a moral here, it's talk to the people you love, you know? Family. Aggregate din from cutlery, coffee machines, and resolute voices thickens the sweetened air in the Eden Project Visitor Centre Cafe. A red-mopped toddler slaps her Looney Tunes spork across the high chair tabletop and stubs her stub of hand, setting off the usual siren of anguish. Child, the world is not as anyone expects. My wife and I sit several tables away, as far as we can, and grimace as Mummy lifts with studied grace the utensil her progeny clutches, bringing out a fresher growl of grief. You won't remember suffering here, or all that's yet to come throughout this erstwhile clay pit of stinky shrubs and leaf-dense biomes skulking the valley beyond. 2 caterpillars riddled with human mites, where ice creams wait, a bamboo xylophone waits. And I think, what could our life be with someone else in it? Then you would be our life. The child shrieks on, still hoping for all to come right. And now a waitress totters across, all baby smiles and hair buns shining on her crown, and limbs and lashes, 2/3 my age, and clears their plates and smiles, which stuns the infant, who softens into a stare, head bobbling. My wife chisels her rock cake with a knife, leaves me the bigger half, and I set to, scrawling postcards to my parents. An only child must remember more. Each while, my mother hopes for news. Each while, my father, elsewhere, hopes for news. Will none of us say the things we've thought until there isn't time? I'll harden my thought. We are too many. We haven't seen enough. Okay. I think I'm enough among friends here to say that I think I lost my virginity in the southwest of Ireland in the summer of 1997, and I say think because it didn't quite go according to plan. I didn't really have a plan. It's got a subtle title. It's called Coming of Age, and it's dedicated for Emily. No last name, just for Emily. My tent enhanced the world it hid. Cow piss drumming the clotty soil in sudden thrums. A moped now, snarling round a curve in the road, behind the field end, over the brow. Then, near silence, offset by you, cold earring bumping across my face, our ground sheet slipping against the dew. Put my knees up, leave them down. What would someone better do? My first real fuck, not mutual grope, and keen to take it in somehow, in spite of one too many harp and being a little too young to cope. I felt a kinship with that cow, a oneness with the dampened earth, until you Crab walked off my chest, said it's not working, turned and left, jeans in hand, said sorry too loud, but left the porch door half unzipped. And I'd not thought about that trip to Castle Gregory again for several months. And then it dawned that that night I'd not put one on. So I took my girlfriend to Clinic 10 at Lincoln County, and hand on hand, she did her best to comfort me before we learned nothing was wrong. And I didn't care for her much again until she found another man. Which she did. I've never been so heartbroken. So, in the summer of 2016, my friend who comes from upstate New York and lives in California with his wife, they got married in Missouri, and I don't know why they got married in Missouri. It wasn't the most exciting place for me. Is anyone from Missouri?
Emily's from just outside.
Just outside?
Yeah.
You're from, stay outside, Emily. Wasn't my favourite place I've been, to be honest, and it's a strange time to be there, the summer of 2016, as you can imagine. It's kind of the quintessential flyover state that Hillary flew over, you know. The poem's called Reunion. The road out of town is patchy with heat haze that wafts from the tarmac. Each limp little flag drops stripes at the ground. A red barn and silo stand guarding some corn, with a scarecrow in rags whose head has been ripped. Then a dapple of woods and a house every while, each drive cutting down to the road by a square of plaid green, or once green. Then houses more frequently. Then the next town, where the signs saying Bernie have mostly been pulled. Some Hillary ones have appeared in their stead. At Union Grill, Trump v Clinton plays out on a muted TV till it's cut. We break bread, and the jowly man wearing a Don't Blame Me pin badge blames England for Brexit and tells me he's Scotch. But don't speak up and spoil the fun when you know it would anger their family. Watch your mouths, no politics, our hostess has yelled. So I pour his bass slowly to leave a small head, and we gab through a full livelong hour until home time. Then I pump his hot hand, and I wish this man well. This poem is called Ave Maria. It's actually, it doesn't say so in the poem, but it's set in Mallorca, where you find such things in the mountains. So I pushed, like an eager pilgrim, up to the shrine, up switchbacks of calcareous rock, alternately baked and shaded by the olives and carobs, that rock. Then cobbles spread near the summit, a rust-lidded well hiding in a corner. And where they flattened out, it waited, with its dark door, flat white walls, a wave of brown tiled roof, a split rose window. Bells clanked brightly down in the shadowed town, where cars pressed to and fro on the verge of silence. A butterfly bounced across. A plane hit a mountain but slid out the other side, like thread through a needle. Forcing the handle made the shrine door screech, and the bus stop-sized room seemed too dark. But there they were, ready to give their blessings for my offerings, their unfitted crowns dull and preposterous, toppling permanently left and right. The slit-gapped fingers of the infant reaching like a lost conductor, fashioned with all the care grim duty, if not talent, could bestow 700 quiet years ago. Their eyes plump, lips quarter smiling, even the child knowing more than you, including you. and a space in the perspex screen to slip my hand through and sense love bursting fresh from a cold beige foot. So they're from my newer book, Sarajevo Roses. I'm going to read a couple from Tonight the Summer's Over. They're both available out there. I would say I'm from all good bookshops, but that's just not true. Family business. The boatman stares through million pockmarked waters, tapping a cigarette, shying from the rain in Mac and wellies beneath a London plain that rustles and drips. He turns and tells his daughter to bolt the hut. Tonight the summer's over. He heaves the skiff to the boat shed, ties the lines and double locks the door. She fits a sign, closed for season. They load a battered Land Rover with cash tin, radio, stools as fast as they can, for it's raining harder. Lightning blanks the dark and then they're away, the wiper thwacking its arc. She glances at this ordinary man, then shuts her eyes. She's damp and tired and bored. He drives more gently. Neither says a word. Now, in this book, there's a sequence. It's not the sort of poem I'd choose to write now. It's one of the earliest poems I wrote for this book. Some of the earliest poems I wrote, I suppose, that I thought was good enough. It's a very personal poem. It's about growing up. My parents separated when I was 2. I was born in Belfast. My parents lived in Coleraine. My mum left my dad with me for Lincolnshire to her mother's house. So I grew up in a house with my grandmother. My aunt had done the same thing, also from Belfast a few years before with her son. So 5 of us lived in a 3-bedroomed house, and my grandma slept on a chair in the living room and died too soon. The poem's called Growing Pains, and the second part, I'll say it now, the second part includes a few quotations from a poem of my father's called For My Son, which is, I hope this isn't going out anywhere, but like propaganda for his cause, really. And it begins with an epigraph from his poem For My Son. So that's the second part. Growing Pains 1, Distance. Mummy goes to court and Daddy goes to court poppet, and in there they sort out what happens next, love. Where you go to bed and go to school, that's all this is about. And who deserves you most? Who's the best at cuddling you and saying never mind each time you piss the bed? It's like a test and you're the prize, my sweet. The experts know. They've done their sums and read their clever books. That judge man, he's a clever man. So be a big boy, kid, and dry your eyes. We all love you. We're doing all we can. And now, my word, you're 25 years older, pulling affidavits from a folder. 2, for my father, beginning with the epigraph. Discord, which has ripped you from your father, stripped away known places, play and friends. Rory Waterman, For My Son. So, I grew up a case in Lincolnshire, abducted, as you'd have it, just turned 2, when she revoked my birthright, brought me here. This is my tale of access times with you. Daddy came each month. On Saturday, the social worker's car would take me down to the Lindham guest house in Lincoln. On Saturday, the social worker's car would take me down to the Lindham guest house, 7 miles away in Lincoln. Then we'd hug and walk around the shops and up the hill to Castle Square, a gape-mouthed gatehouse one way, and the other, the honeyed Munster penetrating air. And in another world, my loving mother. For this was Daddy's place. You taught me how the Normans built those arches, how that well gave Romans all their water from the brow of this glacial hill, beneath which Celts came sliding in small boats to Brayford Pool, where Vikings later came to overhaul and settled with the natives. At my school, we hadn't done this yet, us boys and girls all learning to fit in. And here I stood in my hometown and breaking it apart with Irish Daddy, near to whom I slept. Then Sunday would arrive, and I'd depart, full of stories, tears, cake, love, resentment, our candle burning brightly to a stub in Lincoln Minster, 7 miles away, as I got home, and you got to the pub. A swift one for your long, hard journey home. And though I didn't love one of you more, the cries and bedtime hugs with Mum at home were urgent. But it's you whom I cried for. And that was most of it. Remember how I'd speak into the dictaphone, explain my feelings on where I'd like to live now, in a town I'd only heard of called Coleraine, while sitting in the Linden, downing sweets. At 2, I'd not grown used to anywhere. By 5, the squat stone houses, leafy streets of Dunstan, rural Lincolnshire was where my life was, if for better or for worse. The court heard our recording and agreed. And Lincoln was a blessing and a curse, where Daddy lived each month and lived with me. I was actually made a ward of court. And I wasn't allowed to leave England and Wales until I was 10. The third part's called Ireland's 10. The first 4 words have quotation marks around them. Ireland's 10. This is your homeland. Looking at a row of mountains for the first time in living memory, that child of sunken Lincolnshire, of flattened vowels and reticence, I knew that it was not, and why he wanted it to be. Those Ireland shirts he put me in on access visits, toddling round a chipped bust of King George III in Lincoln Castle, sporting green, had fractured me. The first house that I'd known, where he still lived and drank, no more to me than photographs until that week. But always my other home. The leafy bank I dreamed was there behind the lens, thick and wild with gooseberries and blackberries, rosehips and thorns like Mum had. Was a breeze block school for Catholic kids with uniforms and habits that I didn't know, accents, odd names, ginger hair, school holidays at funny times. I'd watched them through the window there, then back at school and flooded with a slurry of ineptitudes. I'd brag about that other home, and other me, not here like them, the Irish me that never was, the bronze-haired friends I'd never made, the mansion where Dad never lived, and mourned the loss of all these things I'd never had, and always had, and grew, estranged from Lincolnshire, and desperate to get out of there. I'll go back to this book for 2 more, and then I'll pass you over. Okay, there are 3 poems in here for my friend Mike. We grew up together, we're very good friends. We're very different now. I'm an academic for my sins. He's a punk rocking taxi driver. So yeah, I grew up in a Lincolnshire village, and Mike still lives somewhere around there. And this poem's called 11 O'Clock Shadow. Back in Nocton bus stop. Opposite, a square of light appears, and then a man in profile, rippling behind the frosted glass, who cleans his teeth in silence, then returns to where he came from, returns the square to dark, returns us to one another. Now, Mike can pass the joint he'd hidden up his sleeve. It's out. "Don't let him see us, light it behind the bin," he says. So I do. It tastes a bit like meat, and though we guess we're high and still don't know the hash we've bought's a crumbled OXO cube, we sense it isn't really working right. It can't be long before we'll call it a night. There's school to barely attend the following day, and Ellie Smith, shirt front taut like shrink wrap, will cover our folders in hearts and never like us, and far too soon be pregnant with her first. An on-off gust bosses the trees about and quivers street lamps. They're stuck here just like us, whose only knowledge of life's the best of it. For now, we'll relax. Let smoking do its worst. And then finally a poem, also one of the three for Mike, called Sometime After Last Orders. It's pretty much a true story. After a gig in Nottingham with Mike, who likes his punk, to see a punk band. Okay, so the poem's got some Miley Cyrus lyrics in it, and they're in italics and they're in brackets, but they're also shite and you can't hear italics or brackets, so when I read them I'm going to put my hand up, so I don't mind I'll take account for my own shite, but someone else's is just too much for me to bear. So, Sometime After Last Orders. I've read the signs. Still, I hand her change. A small, rough tube of copper and silvery coins, but all I've got, I add. Amir's kebabs is yellow and empty. Miley Cyrus comes on. Our new friend bites the pizza I gave up 2 slices from the end, then starts again. At 9 I'm due in court for shoplifting, so I took this jumper out of H&M to look presentable. I've got my pride, they can't take that. We can kiss who we want. I've just made some mistakes. What? Alcohol. So la-da-dee-da-dee. And heroin. I've just sucked off a bloke for 20 quid. When Dad died, I went mad. I lost my flat, I lost my kids and all. Somewhere, something bangs. A car? Mike gets his wallet out, says, "Don't do that," and slips her 2 crisp tenors which disappear before she disappears, calling a functional thanks. We run things, they don't run we. We stand and open the door, which Amir locks behind us. The slabs are slick with watery streetlight, mulch, the dints of years. A stilettoed clubber clops and lists our way. "Let's go," Mike says. I'm glad. He lifts a hand. A black cab 3-point turns right where we stand. Thank you.
Young Lian was born in the city of captive bears, Bern, Switzerland, in 1955. Like many of his generation while still a teenager, towards the end of the Cultural Revolution, he was obliged to undergo in the countryside re-education through labour, where he undertook a variety of tasks, including digging graves. As a young man, he began writing verse in a traditional way which would have been viewed as decadent by the party at the time. As he matured, he developed a modernist style, which would be most evident, I guess, in his Bloodaxe collection, Concentric Circles. Along with Bei Dao, he is often spoken of as China's most likely poet to receive the Nobel Prize. Narrative poem, the book he's going to read from tonight, is a more, to my mind, more readable book than Concentric Circles, being, as the title suggests, more narrative-minded and with an accommodation of more emotionally accessible subject matter. The British poet W.N. Herbert devised the most pithy and witty soundbite to describe Yang Lian, like MacDiarmid meets Rilke with samurai sword drawn, possibly confusing the origins of certain martial arts. Exiled from China after the upheavals in 1989, he is now regularly welcomed back, where the Chinese treat him like a poetry rock star, and not just because he looks like one. That will be placed up. Put my Guinness. Thank you very much. Patrick, I don't know you know or not, but tonight is the Chinese New Year Eve. You know that?
Yes.
So I thought it was really a great coincidence, but actually you planned this. But it's very nice because I spreading the news of the Cork International Poetry Festival via the WeChat, which is Chinese kind of a Twitter. Simply only about 700 million people using it. And response was huge. So Cork is so famous. Not me, but Cork Poetry Festival. Well, that was really great. I thank you so much for bringing me here. And again, in your introduction, it says that W. Herbert actually said that my poems like McDermott made lyric or something. Last night, when after reading, there was two girls here and asked me, "Are you Chinese?" I said, "Yeah." "So why McDermott and the lyric? And your looks not Scottish, your looks not German, you know, like that." And I had to say, sorry, poetry goes deeper than the surface of language. So we somehow maybe the wildness and a little bit the philosophical, whatever Bill Herbert means, but he thought I was the meeting of the two great men. Which anyway, the poem I'm going to read is all from this newly born baby, the narrative poem, the book titled Narrative Poem. This is my autobiographical book-long poem, published by Bloodaxe, of course. And well, this book been written in London between 2005 and 2010. Spent about 5 years. Again, the translator spent more than 3 years, nearly 4 years, to translate it because my work has always been hated by the translators, and it's very terribly complex. But again, deliberately, I think a poet, this is our job, to sit on the challenges to the translator, and also to, therefore, making a good exchange with the poets or the people in other culture and language. This book built up with 3 big chapters. And the first one called the Photographer Album book, which actually contained the photos from my first day, was born until the date was the 7th of January 1976, which the day, one day before my mother died. And so that was the day, actually she and me, I came back from my countryside where I've been so-called re-education, and she was so ill from her so-called re-education during the Cultural Revolution. We put few last photos in this photographer book. And in the afternoon, I ride my bicycle back to the village. And next morning, the telephone like that, running, and called me, my mother died. So almost naturally, that photographer book becoming the base of the first chapter. And second chapter is quite long, 5 elegies based on the 5 themes ran through our life. Reality elegy, love elegy, history elegy, hometown elegy, and poetry elegy. So that's the second
like those 5 lines go through our life, and the third part is called the Rune of Sages, which is more kind of internal short poems. So I'm sorry for this longer introduction, because the poem I selected for the reading tonight is somehow, I hope, to keep this line of the narrative for you, and therefore you can keep this in mind. Well, again, the challenge point tonight is I'm going to read in Chinese only, and then the English translation will be projected here, and so you will be too busy with ears but also with eyes, and the problem is I hope you can read the words on screen a little bit quicker, in order to, you can, if I didn't finish, you can come back. But better than you didn't get there and then page turned again. So, sorry about this inconvenient. But anyway, so here the first poem is titled Huangtu Nandian, where the name of the village where I've been sent to the so-called re-education during the Cultural Revolution. 1st of May is the day when I've been sent to the village. So there was a very much the first feeling when I approaching to the village. The rhyme in poem, because we are in Ireland, very poets country, so the beauty, the ethical standard of the book is higher than my other books. So the special design rhyme in different parts. So here is one rhyme from beginning to end. Oh, Chinese. 黄土南甸，1974年5月4日的台长。老白马的腰扭得好看，每一颠，扑鼻一股膻味儿。马车擦过麦田，甚至没惊动刚末期的绿色。5月，阳光和土都很慢，慢慢拆散一条路泛白的语法，记忆一碰就变大。布谷鸟点播着片段，老白马知道，那村子也是倒退的影子，隔着一道道吃力黏膜的坎。路边的白杨树也在慢吞吞倒叙，水沟、坟头、土坯墙像卷旧影片放映在眼神里，眼皮渗出日子的黄，西山昏睡成一列嵌着锦葵的宅院，那儿有扇木门，像棵活的栗子树，攥紧小青果似的手，受惊的嫩和软。那儿时间在叶子们的鱼群里垂钓，雪咬了钩，最古老的哲学仍是一声长叹。母亲送别时转身擦掉的泪，也是影子。从记忆再错位一点，一头瞎了的老牲口就学入春天的缝隙。它到了，村民的绿袖爬满一张脸。It's okay to follow in that? Thank you so much. That's the first day I arrived the village, and now I'm going to read the Left Death, 1976. As I said, my mother died in 8th of January 1976, and that was also the year Mao Zedong died, and the Cultural Revolution ended, and China started to wake up slowly. Yeah, but that was the important year. And again, my mother's death left a big emptiness, blank in my life. And actually, since that year, I feel the writing became something much more important, not for any kind of blah 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 and official, but link with my life inside. Okay. 死生1976年，他一天天追赶母亲的死，追一部早晨狂转的手摇电话机，自行车把顶着天空的噩耗后退，风砸在脸上，钢印砸进他的缺席，医院味儿半握在蜡黄的掌心里，母亲发脆的手，水泥地上摔断的树枝带走了肩轴疼，磕坏的眼镜片儿，也在抱怨他来得太迟，或太早。一根蜡烛还在等30年完成那熄灭那薄薄皮肤下黑暗的构思，逆着风佝偻登车，用字攻占一团果肉。30年缺席分娩它，成一首诗。母亲一行也没读过的，一次次托梦错过的。一种血脉滴洒墨汁，给一本蜡质的书无数早晨的篇幅，它星星点点晕开，像母亲隐秘发育的无知。用自己重写母亲绝别的年龄，自行车铃声似的死亡念头太熟悉时，比事实还近。从碎了的骨灰瓮开始，它只剩双倍的生命和美丽。Okay. Okay. That first two poems somehow about or linked with my mother, and quite often when I'm using the word of mother, I'm using the 复数怎么说 plural because I have a nanny. She actually came to our homes when my older sister was born, and so she was all the way with us. And of course, when I was born, she was there. And then somehow, actually, I feel much more closer to her. We don't call her nanny, we call her auntie. And well, my mathematical teacher in the high school, and he actually was a painter. And when he saw my nanny's photo, and he said, this was the most beautiful face of the working class woman in China. Can I make a portrait? I was so stupid and too young, and even just simply forgot that suggestion. But after my nanny died, I thought it was a great pity I didn't make this them link together. So when I started to write this book, and I said I must write a poem about my auntie, and therefore a title almost naturally jumped to my mind, Portrait of Auntie. So that's the poem I'm going to read for you. And 3 stanzas, each stanza have 10 lines, and every line is rhymed. But 3 stanzas with 3 different rhymes. Okay. 二姨的肖像。 First stanza. 西北风拧紧窗户上1000朵冰花，窗帘还黑着，雪的黑沙子响在他脚下。四合院的5点钟，黎明是一幅石板画，细布衣，一侧发亮的手指嘚嘚扣打。男孩子粘着梦的玻璃，映出一头白发。细布2，烤得热乎乎的馒头包进手帕，热热的目光送他上学，咳嗽声避着朝霞。细布3，仪容似的天空，靛青如一块蜡。记忆再多笔触，也画不出一幅肖像，只记得他骨灰盒移走的那天，房间多空旷。真走了，一个咽下皑皑身影的远方，哭喊不能，而一卷手抄的书能追上，拽着那衣襟儿，像拽着一锅荷叶粥的清香。墓穴下字的调皮鬼紧挤在他身旁，还要跟他睡。当他又故意把儿子笑嚷成儿子，一滴泪烫着黑暗，痴痴响。伟人们相信青铜像，他的伟绩却是一条线，划定在他眼里。小胡同追着时代变换坡度，而拆开的旧毛裤在他指针间加热。善良竟如此简单，如此难。像个重负得忍着，一件老羊皮袄的蓝布面，忍住更多早晨。他醒来仍捧着那张脸，从自己海底捞起，被洗净的贝壳缀满，一只古朴的时髦稳稳系着他的船。Okay, the next poem is jumping to the second part of the book, which is, as I said, that 5 elegies. And the first elegy is called the reality elegy. In my life, and somehow in this world, I think that 1989 was a very, very important year. And you may remember Tiananmen massacre happened in Beijing. And that was actually the reason somehow I left China and started this international journey. But again, this even Tiananmen massacre was a very, let's say, tragedy happened in China. But again, it goes on becoming symbolically the situation of the human being. So reality elegy here is a quite long poem, but I select 3 parts from this reality elegy, which directly link with Tiananmen massacre, and I'm going to read for you now. Part 1. 履带下血红的泥泞，是1月的梅花，还是6月的槐花？钢铁缝隙间挤出一张脸的茫茫，旋入石头的漩涡。当你走过，不会绊住你的脚步；当你突然记起，甚至有一缕幽香，甜甜搅着喉咙。当季节复印一片片碾平的花瓣，让你不知死在哪次， 哪个清明雨声不再缝合丝绸的眉眼？你的惊愕，噗的溅出时，复述的第一次，在偷听唯一一次。眼泪炎热而空洞，我们走过，不会绊住我们的脚步。当裤脚下轮轴粼粼滚动。离开的日子都是清明，雨滴细数，雨滴内微雕成颗粒状的宇宙。淋湿的白布条上字迹依稀，玉器台阶下，垃圾堆星闪的校徽，自行车腥臭的骸骨，绊不住你，因为你不知死在哪次，月光失踪似的存在多次。望，性感女儿似的长大。只有一个故事的生命让我们晕，我们太多的故事。每本书夹着一支含铅的紫丁香，不变的体积，不停抽出一株植物里更空虚的美。再来，房间才空了，情人真的走了。Part 3。现实不是一个主题，一张钢铁词语间挤烂的脸。Not right.
That's the fault of the slide or the person moving it, I think.
Not right. Reality start with.
The last line.
Last line.
Here.
Oh, the last line there. Okay. All right. Anyway, I just go on. 现实不是一个主题，一张钢铁词语间挤烂的脸，不是任何人的。旗子的啪啪掌声，以褪色为风声。一顶帐篷搭过的地方，急急传递一碗水的地方，是这里吗？你的脚步，我们的脚步，在金属雨声中湿湿黏黏狂奔的地方，是这里吗？但这里是哪里？这无人是哪里？绊不住花瓣的日日清明，驱逐不知疲倦的嫩嫩生命，轮回之旅从未轮回出一只眼眶，茫茫梗在咽喉下，淡淡的紫色，虚构一个摇曳的姿势，最擅长一种流淌的幻象，流成血肉难熬的奇迹。一株水薄荷，用一支粉扑擎着灰烬，一天没呕出那条履带，一天就在活祭。海水汹涌的裂缝灌满盲音。今夜，我为自己，为你，为离开一哭，到惊愕之外，继续死去。Okay, so the next one, I'm jumping to the history elegy, which is the this part. History elegy is separated as the seven parts, and I selected 7 historical figures with 7 clear data, and I call that. Scenes from my history, and the one I'm going to read is the ancient Greek historian called Thucydides. Am I okay? Thucydides? And he wrote the history of Peloponnese War. And I have been to Siracusa, and especially because of that book, because the turning point of the ancient Athens was when they sent two big armies to fight to Siracusa, but been destroyed in Siracusa. And then there was from the rising to the fallen of the Athens. But this structure, internally democratic, externally imperialist, is actually been repeated in the history from Rome, from Napoleon, from the British Empire, from America. Actually, we see this strange structure all the time. So that poem will talk about the back history, but also the reality. You will see something here. This is one poem a little bit long, so I'm going to growing straight to read to the end. So hopefully you can follow that with the screens. 修昔底德斯，当他徘徊在希拉库扎，海浪不骗人，他的雅典口音缠着死者坟上一只只断脚，溺爱的蓝继续滑动，阳光锈住了眼眶的无花果空着，那挡在回家路上的绊倒不存在。我们来这里只为尝尝自己肉里渗出的咸，大理石渗出雪白的诅咒，证实情痞不分地点。废墟的侧面支离破碎，密密刻满字母，俯冲如一只只从它掌中凶猛绝食的海鸥。水平线的叫声又冷又亮。那刺穿青铜盾牌的水，结晶在死者焦渴的嘴边，像妄想中的胜利。修昔底德斯，来此寻访亡灵的，袍子里的风鼓动讲给一切诗人的叛国罪。不认识的词，公元前，踩响地雷，可乐瓶，碎电脑。灵柩跨着正步，蒙在国旗下，摆进翱翔的机器。他的仪仗队是个干裂的港口，柱廊和蜥蜴相同的两栖类。听见心里一片海，日日退去，舔不到脚趾的灿烂波浪，拉开旷野，撕散的棉桃像两行足迹。我们的远征总背对海，像一场和自己无休止的争论。他们蹂躏了那地方，就回去了。史书这样写我们死亡的意义：奇形怪状的海岸上，仙人掌果缀着血红的乳头，素指腰的胡桃树下，毁灭背对每一个故乡。他们蹂躏了那地方，就回去了。简洁的句子拖着地中海刮平的神域摸不到的海底。罗马、拿破仑、不列颠，一蓬蓬火山灰庞然倒扣下，瞎眼的鹰扛着今天的帝国。但我们是回不去的。乌有的意义是回不去的。我们的家埋在别人粉碎的家里。修昔底德斯精致研究一朵浪花跌落的绝对性。我们的蹂躏唯一赢得了一声枪击的沉闷感谢。一片走投无路的摇落的松阴， 对每只耳朵都是外语，没人听懂时，只对自己说；活人听不见，就对死人说。修昔底德斯本身是亡灵，沿着希腊的溃败，布置一座两边都是海的高耸的石门，湛蓝耀眼的穿越，等于同一场沉没。回家的路本不存在，因为大海那边本没有家，因为我们比大海更空旷，唯有厌倦这唯一一边，厌倦于自己的分裂，和在潮水上记录分裂的努力。一个吹散云朵的深长叹息，震荡肺腑。波罗奔尼撒不在，纽约、伊拉克不在，未来失手预约的手术，溅起堆堆疯狂演讲的泡沫，早缝合了。树叶翻开惨白的底牌，我们的鱼骨斜插在书里，盯着看，四周粗硬的沙粒涌出腐蚀的颜色。修昔底德斯抚摸一个淤血的字，大海这块家，抚摸过被蹂躏的人的可能性。回不去时，回到一只戳疼天空的断桨，第一眼就被蓝的浓度宠坏了，把噩耗研磨得更细些，写出历史。I don't know, is that time okay or not? Last poem?
Last poem.
Okay. The last poem is important because this poem actually is wrote and linked with our friend, the Irish poet, WBS. Well, I met a friend who originally came from Sligo, and his name is Sean Golden, and we met in China in 1982. And then we start to talk about Sligo, and then we said, yes, we have to come to Sligo. But it's only in 20 years, since 1982, I was in Sligo, a poetry festival. And so it was really a long time, but including my own journey from China to the international and to so many places, and finally I was there. And so that is a poem will be good for the ending of the reading. The run here again, A, B, A, B, A, B all the time. Okay. 我的历史场景之七，叶之 yes in Chinese， 叶之，现在和以往，斯莱格墓园。大海是一个诺言，至死不兑现，才一次性夺走我们的眺望。它的名字牵着约会的另一端。等了20年的早晨，风声格外嚣张。本布尔本山的静默，绷紧鬼魂的蓝，全世界的韵脚，阴和一排海浪。成百万块化石贯穿一条血腥的线，我蹦着走，像被举在一滴水滴上。我的影子也像动物爬过海岸。有小小肉体扼住呼吸的疯狂，有背着光的陷进石缝的双眼，有个堆积的活过的形象。什么也别说，小教堂的语言刻成孤零零的雕花柱子，月光把嵌在厨房窗口的本布尔本山推远，山脊上一抹天青色从他的诗行斟入我的一品，
用20年变酸，一个未预期的我又已是陈酿。陈旧的能和他共作，消磨爱尔兰；空旷的迷上一阵欧啼的苍凉，他耳语大海的缝合术灵光闪闪，一次靠岸仍靠近离开的方向。当汽笛锈蚀的喉咙引着浑浊的夏天，这个吻有诀别味儿溅到唇上，失火在醉人的被狂风吹干，他的墓碑噙着冷艳的青苔香。远景在我的呼吸里撒盐，骑马人像大海放出的白云一样，云诺碧蓝湖面上，一条宛如锁死的船，一次性完成我们的眺望。Thank you very much.